Our top story at 6 tonight, getting help when you need it fast. Investigative reports just found that for many rural communities, there's no ambulance or only one that operates part-time. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Paula Sands.
And I'm Gary Mativier. KWQC's Courtney Yuen headed to rural Bennett, Iowa to see how services in the Quad Cities stack up.
Gary, for people in metro areas like Davenport and Bettendorf, response times are fairly quick, about 4 to 5 minutes. But once you start getting into more rural areas like in Donahue or over here in McCausland, response times start at an average of 8 minutes and are based on the availability of volunteers.
When you get a call, you go. You don't think I can't go because you get a 911 call, it means that somebody needs help. You got to go.
Danny Hammond will be 74 years old on Friday. He's been volunteering for Bennett Ambulance Services for 52 years.
I'm happy I can do it yet, my health, but I'm getting older.
People in rural areas like Bennett, Iowa have been counting on volunteers like Danny to save their lives for decades. Emergency medical services are not mandated in Iowa, meaning cities, counties, or the state aren't required to fund them.
EMS is getting ignored and not getting funded the way it should.
Orville Randolph is the director of Bennett Ambulance Services and a sheriff's deputy and the mayor of Bennett.
It is a constant struggle to keep us going, and we kind of all work together to help each other out when we have staffing shortages.
His team of 25 people have full-time jobs on top of their volunteering, adding to the struggle of providing 24/7 service.
If we're out on a medical call, in Davenport, transporting a patient, there's not an ambulance in town. So we have to page another service to come in if a second call while we're out of town.
He says that could turn an 8-minute response time into a 20-minute response time. Minutes that some patients just don't have.
A patient in cardiac arrest, with every minute that passes, it decreases the survival rate by 10%.
Executive Director for Medic EMS, Linda Fredrickson, says 70% of EMS providers in Iowa are volunteers, but many of those organizations are closing down due to lack of funding or volunteers. Buffalo, Iowa was one of them just a few months ago.
The funding needs to be fixed, so I think that at a state level that we should be looking at the fact that EMS shall be provided by each of its 99 counties in our state versus may be provided.
Orville Randolph says they are lucky enough to get $15,000 a year from the city of Bennett and surrounding township taxation, but it doesn't go very far after paying for a $200,000 ambulance truck or a $25,000 defibrillator, among many other things. Most of their spending money comes from their own fundraisers or donations.
Courtney, thank you. Bennett Ambulance Services says they are calling on state legislators now to make emergency medical services an essential service like fire protection and law enforcement.
Our rain may have stopped from now as we have a break, but those floodwaters are still on the rise.
Yeah, one local business has to close over the holiday weekend because of it. KWQC's Courtney Yuen is live tonight with that story for us.
Gary, here in downtown, there's flood walls and installations in place to keep floodwaters out of the businesses here and in modern Woodman Park. Yesterday, Mike Clark said the city would help all businesses that needed it.
Whenever we hear that there's a need, we respond. And if it's sandbags or HESCOs or plastic or whatever it takes, we're going to do what is needed in order to keep these businesses open.
But one business in the West End says they called but aren't getting any help, and it's going to cost them big time because they have to shut down this holiday weekend.
I can't express what that meant, to feel so absolutely helpless and watching all the dogs be carried out, and they came and said, let us help.
Margie Marcingill owns Pet Pals, a kennel and grooming business. She says they had to find a place for the 24 pets who were supposed to stay here over the long holiday weekend.
I had to close the doors, but I'd rather close the doors than call somebody and say, yeah, your dog died.
She says she'll lose $12,000 because she can't stay open, and she's blaming the city.
We're seeing the city go through the floodwaters and deliver to our neighbors or our neighboring businesses over here. Nothing coming to us.
Margie says she called Public Works on Monday to get 4 loads of sand. They showed up within a half an hour with 1 load, saying they'd be back.
He left and we never saw anyone again. I kept calling and calling, and you know, they just would take my name and number, and that was it.
Something Public Works Director Mike Clark says was a trail of conversations that became disconnected.
We need sand. I don't know how that could be miscommunicated.
Clark declined to speak on camera today, but says they will use this incident as an example of where they can improve as a department.
And why are you neglecting us? Why aren't we getting the sand?
They're having to make do with 4 dozen sandbags instead of 4 truckloads of sand and their pump.
We have massive leaks, which we have right now. Our pump is just barely being able to keep up with it.
She says the hallways of her facility echo. Still empty, where usually barking can be heard.
We're just hoping to get dogs back here soon.
Margie says they're hoping to have dogs back into their facility as early as Saturday, as long as the river crests and starts to go back down on Friday. Regardless, she says they're going to wait until it's safe to bring the animals back in. Live in Davenport, Courtney Yuen, Kwqc, TV6 News.
Our top story at 6 tonight, and in a story we first broke on Friday, a Hanover, Illinois plant is closing, moving production to Mexico. I'm Paula Sands.
I'm Gary with TVA tonight. KWQC's Courtney Yuen on the impact employees and townspeople believe this plant closing will have on them.
Along I-84 through the bluffs that follow the Mississippi lies the small town of Hanover.
It's going to hurt very badly.
This man's ancestors helped found the town. His great-grandfather originally built this plant in the 1860s, then called the Woolen Mill. Today it's owned by Robert Shaw and will be closing next September.
A small town like this can hardly take a blow like that, and there are a lot of people depend on this.
John says morale in the town is low and has seen many companies come and go in that space over the years.
Well, I think that they need to quit chasing lower wages. This is not a high-paying plant, and they're still leaving for cheaper wages. It's terrible, and we'll have no middle class if this keeps up.
The village president tells us about 170 people will lose their jobs. Here's one who used to work at the plant. He was laid off almost a decade ago.
That's probably about the only employer here. Imagining it'll turn into another ghost town.
KWQC tried to talk to employees impacted by the closing at shift change today, but all seemed afraid to talk. In a press release from Robert Shaw, the facility in Hanover produces water valves for washing machines and refrigeration. The company says it'll work closely with their employees throughout the transition. In Hanover,
it's just a shame.
Courtney Yuen, KWQC, TV6 News.
Another company plant in West Plains, Missouri that manufactures gas valves will close in 2016, bringing the total jobs lost to 500 people across those 2 facilities. The village president tells us they will work to find someone to use that factory once it's vacated. For many families, putting food on the table is getting tougher and tougher. The problem is growing in Clinton County.
Over the last 3 years, we have seen a 47% increase in the food sites and the numbers served, so it's a huge jump for us.
We told you about the food pantries struggling to keep food on the shelves because the demand has grown. But what's really the story behind this need? KWQC's Courtney Yuen is here with what she found out today.
Gary, here's what we found out. Check out this graph. These are the families that are going to just one food pantry in Clinton. In 2011, the Benevolent Society fed 623 families, and look how it's grown. This year in 2014, they've already fed 905 families, and there's still 2 months in their year to go. We wanted to know what was going on here. We know unemployment is going down, so more people are going back to work, but what we found out is it's the type of jobs they're taking that leaves them hungry.
The line here at the mobile food pantry goes through 2 parking lots. 193 families walked through this line to get what we all need to survive, food. This line is typical in Clinton.
This is my 3rd time using this food bank, which helps.
Kelly James says she used to have good paying jobs, but medical conditions put her on a fixed income. Now she delivers newspapers trying to supplement her disability checks.
It's hard on everybody, regardless if they had a great paying job down to a minimum wage job. It's pure hard anymore.
It takes you an hour of work to buy a pound of hamburger.
Justin Baber says he's having a hard time supporting his family.
Jobs come and go. But in our area in Clinton, I know when I was, 18, 19 years old, you could get a job at a fast food restaurant very easy. I mean, even the factories have slowed down, I think.
So he's working odd jobs, one of the many in Clinton who can't find work that keeps them from this line.
And are you seeing, underemployment being an issue here in Clinton?
Very definitely. Very definitely. In the 30 years that I have lived in this community, the demographics, if you will, have changed remarkably. We've lost a lot of the higher paid manufacturing jobs and replaced them with lower level, more laborer type jobs.
Brenda Travers works with families where she's seen this happen firsthand.
Where they used to have a decent job, have taken minimum wage jobs, part-time jobs, just to try and get a little bit. But they're just not making it.
And the jobs that are available, competition from out of town makes them even harder to get.
When you become an underemployed person, it's harder to put a nutritious meal on your table.
But what is the solution?
The challenge is twofold. One is to provide training and retraining for our workforce here in the community, but also to attract those higher technically competent jobs.
In Clinton, Courtney Yuen, Kwqc, TV6 News.
The Clinton Regional Development Corporation says in the past 2 to 3 years they have attracted about 250 new jobs to the area. Pretty good paying jobs, but people have to have the skills to do them. Right now they say they are working on bringing more businesses to Clinton. It is free while you are protecting my freedom. From a little business owner who says he will store a soldier's motorcycle for free while he is deployed. KWQC's Courtney Yuen reports tonight on what this act of kindness means to his family.
It started with a simple act of kindness in a motorcycle, but turned into a viral story of love and support for our troops.
They're there for us, and it's amazing to know that complete strangers are helping one another.
Jamie's husband is on his 3rd deployment with the Army. He's Sergeant First Class Christopher Walters and has been serving his country for 23 years. She says she was floored when a local businessman sent back her payment to store her husband's motorcycle while he's away.
The kind of his heart to make room in his building for my husband's bike just gives you that warm fuzzy feeling inside.
So grateful for the support, she posted the letter sent back to her to Facebook, not knowing that thousands would see it. Denny Packey of Ryman's Harley-Davidson in Kewanee says it was just his way of thanking Christopher for his service.
We got to thank our boys and our ladies over there. They're the ultimate sacrifice. You know, I'm just storing a little spot in this building. They're giving a lot more than I could ever comprehend.
Denny says he's received calls from all across the country, people thanking him for what he did for a soldier and his family. Even the Admiral of the USS Ronald Reagan called him at sea.
He told me, he said, Godspeed to you. And I said, no, sir, Godspeed to you and your people. And he says, I have to leave now. He says, this is the USS Ronald Reagan signing off.
But Denny says he's always done this for veterans and is humbled by all the attention his kindness has gotten.
It just shows that people care. I'm just a small example.
Denny says they'll have Christopher's bike ready for him when he gets back. Jamie says they're hoping he'll be home for Christmas.
I miss you, Daddy. I love you.
Blumkiss.
In Geneseo, Courtney Yuen, KWQC, TV6 News.
I think that says it all. Denny says he's gotten so many calls from people wanting to thank him for what he's done. He, of course, hasn't been able to return all of them.